Hello, dear friends, dear Kardec video friends. Here we are on a Monday afternoon and 3:30 Pacific Standard Time and 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we'll be talking based on the book of Louis Hu, which is Spiritism 101. Today we will be addressing spiritual influence. It's a big chapter, so I hope everyone is ready, and let's begin. Spirits are by our side and can see everything we do. Everything we do. I'll say that again. Spirits are by our side and can see everything we do. It is funny to me because a lot of people are always so upset about cameras being installed everywhere in cafes and stores and even on the highway. And in the meantime, we're being watched 24/7 by God and the good spirits and the bad spirits by so many spirits. They say that they influence our thoughts, our actions, and they do it constantly and all the time. Can you believe that? Let us go to the Spirit's book, which we also use as a resource for our gatherings, and we will also use Genesis. So in the Spirit's book, we are going to question number 456, and it's in chapter 9, the intervention of spirits in the corporeal world. It's a big chapter, and it's a wonderful read. It's so interesting and so educational. It will go beyond the scope of our gathering today to go into all the facets and questions in this chapter. So if you're interested, I warmly recommend to go deeper with it. Hi, Teresa. Nice to see you. Welcome. So we're going to question number 456 in the Spirit's book. Can spirits see everything we do? The answer, they can, because you're constantly surrounded by them. Nonetheless, they see only those things to which they direct their attention. They are not concerned about things that do not interest them. So there is a limitation, but they have the capacity to read our thoughts and see everything we're doing. Question number 457. Can spirits know our most secret thoughts? And the answer is, they often know about what you would like to conceal, even from yourselves. Neither actions nor thoughts can be concealed from them. So we're an amazingly open book. Let us digest that for a moment. Sub-question 457. So it would seem easier to conceal something from a person while he or she is alive than to do so after he or she has died? Certainly. And when you think you're well hidden, you often have a crowd of spirits around you watching you. Wow. Question 458. What do the spirits who surround and observe us think about us? That depends, is the answer. Frivolous spirits laugh at the little annoyances they cause you, and they scoff at your impatience. Serious spirits, on the other hand, pity your imperfections and try to help you. So we see the spirits are around us. They see everything. They hear everything. We are never alone in the real sense of the word. Spirits can also read our thoughts and often suggest ideas to us. Usually when we have a thought, the first that comes to mind is ours. The second is that of the spirits. When we are engaged in any activity and a thought, a song or a joke comes to mind, we may suspect that this idea was suggested by some spirits. Let us now go to Genesis, page 289, to understand the mechanism a little bit better, how that is actually possible. Page 289 is part of chapter 14, and the title is the fluids. And the subtitle of the chapter, the fluids, is the action of spirits upon the fluids, fluidic creations, thought, photography. Again, we're only picking little pieces out of that chapter. So if you want to really educate yourself about how this works, I warmly recommend to read the whole chapter. The spiritual fluids, which comprise one of the states of the universal cosmic fluids, are, properly stated, the atmosphere for spirit beings. So I read that again. The spiritual fluids are the atmosphere for spirit beings. And the spiritual fluids is comprised of one of the states of the universal cosmic fluid. Now let's go back. We talked about it last time, but for those of you who don't remember and also who may not have been here, let us go and understand the universal cosmic fluid a little bit better. And that, let me see, that is on page 282. So we go back to page 282, same chapter, chapter 14, the fluids, and it says, the universal cosmic fluid is the primitive elementary matter whose modifications and transformations comprise the innumerable variety of bodies found in nature. So the universal cosmic fluid is the basic element of all the different manifestations in nature. And these manifestations can be either on the ethereal side, namely the etherealization, they call it, or on the matter side, on the materialization. So from the etheric to the material. So that is the universal cosmic fluid. And as we just heard, the spiritual fluid, which is the atmosphere for the spirit beings, is drawn from that. It is the origin of that. It is the element, the spiritual fluid is the element from which they draw the matter upon which they operate. So let us see, we go to chapter 14, subsection 14 of chapter 14. Spirits act upon this spiritual fluid, but they do not manipulate them like humans manipulate gases. So spirits act on this spiritual fluid. Instead, spirits use the help of thought and will. And here it is. So how do spirits act upon the spiritual fluid? Through thought and will. Thought and will are for spirits what hands are to humans. By means of thought, they impress upon the fluids this or that direction. So I hope that makes it a little bit clearer. So spirits influence the spiritual fluid, which is we are surrounded in and we even consist of, through thought and will. Let us say hi to more friends. There's Rod Gomez Bacani. Hello, and thank you so much for being here. And Valeria Benfica is also watching. Welcome, welcome. So let us go back to the Spiritism 101 book and let's see. Next question is, how can we tell if a thought comes from a good or an evil spirit? Yes, Teresa. So Teresa is asking, when you say spirit, do you mean both incarnates and discarnates? No. At this moment, we've been talked about discarnate spirits. I understand that spirits who are incarnated like us, then we call the spirit a soul. So that's a distinction I'm aware of. But I also know that this text that we just read from Genesis was talking about the discarnate spirits. So I hope that helps, Teresa. So how can we tell if a thought comes from a good or an evil spirit? Good question, right? Because there's a lot of thoughts traveling through every single day. Good spirits advise only for the good. We ourselves have to discern case by case. All right, so let's see whether the Spirit's book casts a little bit more light on that. We go to question 459 in the Spirit's book. Question 459. And that is part of chapter 8. For those of you who want to follow along. 459, where are you? Here you are. So it is part of chapter 14, the intervention of spirits in the corporeal world. And the subsection of that chapter is the concealed influence of spirits on our thoughts and actions. Question 459. Do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and action? Well, we actually know already the answer, right? The influence on you in this regard is greater than you suppose, for very frequently it is they who guide you. Question 461. How can we distinguish between our own thoughts and those suggested to us? Aha, so we're getting a little bit closer. The answer. When a thought is suggested to you, it is like a voice speaking to you. Your own thoughts are usually those that occur to you at first impulse. So I say that again, that's really important. Your own thoughts are usually those that occur to you at your first impulse. In other words, the first thought that comes to mind is usually from us. All subsequent thoughts are from spirit beings. Then we have to discern whether they're coming from a good source or not so good source. Actually, you should not concern yourselves with such distinction, the spirits are saying. And it is often more useful not even to know about it. You act more freely. If you make the right decision, you will act more willingly. If you make the wrong one, your responsibility will be greater. So we were given free will, and with that, the ability to discern what comes from a good and what comes from a bad source, which is good advice or when are we ill-advised. Sylvia Beltran Otero, hello. Thank you so much for joining. Let us go to question 464. How can we tell if a suggested thought comes from a good or a bad spirit? We're getting closer to the answer. Study the matter. Good spirits give only good advice. It is your responsibility to make the distinction. So there is no hard and fast answer. It is really up to us to understand where the source for our thoughts are. And from my own experience, I have noticed that the more I understand Jesus, the more I understand about his teachings, about the love, about charity, about becoming a better, more charitable, loving person, the more clearly it has become to me where my thoughts are coming from, where the spirit advice is coming from. Because to me, it is extremely helpful to run ideas that I'm getting through the golden rule. Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. And when I do that in everyday life, it becomes clear to me, would I want this to happen to me, to be done to me? And if the answer is no, then the advice cannot possibly come from a good source. And that is just one way of checking the information source. This is just one way. This is just my way. I hope that helps. We're having a message from Rod Gomez Bacani. How can we overcome or avoid the influence of lower spirits? Rod, we're going to get there a little bit in a few minutes, and hopefully that will help you. But I want to say up front, as I just said a minute ago, the more we practice the good, the more we actually first understand the good. And how can we best do that other than studying Jesus, understanding the gospel, understanding his teachings, the Beatitudes, really using the golden rule to our advantage of understanding what is helpful to other spirits, to be more charitable every single day. The more we go into that direction, the more we avoid the influence of lower spirits. And why is that? Because what we are emanating is more of love, more of charity, more of goodness. And with the law of attraction, we automatically will attract the good spirits to us, more so than if we indulge in painful actions. We indulge in creating pain for other people and ourselves. Who would we attract? Those spirits who do the same and find attraction in us. I hope that helps a little bit, but we will also talk about it in a minute. So let us see. We were at question 464. No, 465. For what purpose do imperfect spirits induce us to wrongdoing? To make you suffer as they themselves do. So, see, this is another guidepost. If we suffer and are caught in darkness and negativity, then we attract more spirits like that. They just see that we feel like them or want us to feel even more like them. What kinds of suffering do they wish to inflict on us? Alan Kardec asks. And the answer is those that result from belonging to a lower order and from being far from God. Far from God. Let's look also at question 466. Why does God permit spirits to incite us to wrongdoings? Yeah, why is the all-loving, paternal God allowing this? Let us see. Imperfect spirits are meant as instruments for testing the faith and constancy of individuals in the practice of the good. So here we see, often it is just putting us to the test. Are we really strong enough to stay on the path to the good? Or do we keel over at the first opportunity of a challenge? It is up to us. It's our merit. It's based on our free will. Imperfect spirits attach themselves to humans to deviate them from the good. They encourage them to vices and passions without limits. But humans always have freedom to either listen and follow them or to change their lives. Let us find a little bit more information on this in Genesis at this point. Page 295. 295 in Genesis, which is part of the chapter, the fluids again, which is chapter 14. And 295. It is of course possible, one might say, to avoid persons known to be ill-intentioned. So this is incarnates right now. But how can we avoid the influence of the evil spirits who swarm around us and intrude everywhere without being seen? The way to do so is quite Sorry, there was an interruption. So the answer is the way to do so is quite simple, because it depends on the will of persons. So it depends on our own will. I lost the point. The way to do so is quite simple, because it depends on the will of persons themselves, who bear within them the necessary protection. Fluids are combined due to the similarity of their natures. Dissimilar fluids repel one another. There is incompatibility between good and bad fluids, just as there is between water and oil. As I said earlier, if we in our emanations and the fluids we surround ourselves due to our actions based on the good, we will automatically not attract or even repel spirits of a lower nature who are trying to incite us to not do the good. What do we do when the air is contaminated? We cleanse it and purify it by destroying the concentration of the miasmas, by expelling the malevolent emanations with stronger currents of healthy air. The invasion of deleterious fluids must therefore be opposed with good fluids. And since we all have in our own perispirit a permanent fluidic source, we have the remedy within us. We can change it. It takes nothing more than purifying the source and giving it such qualities that it may become a repellent of bad influences instead of being an attracting force. The perispirit is therefore armor that must be given the best possible caliber. Thus, because the qualities of the perispirit result from the qualities of the soul. Aha, here we go. So the quality of our perispirit is based on the quality of our soul. And if our perispirit has good quality, then we repel bad spirits or low order spirits, ignorant spirits. Thus, because the qualities of the perispirit result from the qualities of the soul, it is necessary to work on improving it, the soul. We need to work on improving the soul, because it is the soul's imperfections that attract evil spirits. Rod, I hope you heard that. So here we go. It is based ultimately on the quality, on the moral development of our soul. And how can we improve the moral quality of our soul? Well, Spiritism, Jesus, gives us all the answers. All we need to do is study and practice. Practicing the good, thinking the good, speaking the good, acting the good, being charitable, being benevolent, indulgent, forgiving. Forgiving is at the core of it. All of this helps us improve our soul, and by improving our soul, our perispirit, the quality of our perispirit improves. And if that is improved, it works as a repellent against evil or ignorant spirits. Truly, good spirits, whether incarnate or discarnate, have nothing to fear from the influence of evil ones. And I'm sure you now understand why. We don't need to be scared. It is through our own actions that we have the remedy built within us. The repellent, the bug repellent, the spirit repellent. We got it, and we know how to do it. Let's just do it. So let us go back to Spiritism 101 by Louis Hu. Why do imperfect spirits tempt us to wrongdoing? And here's the answer: to make us suffer like they do. We said that earlier. This does not lessen their personal suffering, however. But they do this out of jealousy of those who are happier than themselves. And we know that even in our day-to-day lives, sometimes even our friends, they like to rain on our parade because of jealousy, envy. Many people don't like other people to be happy. And the same goes for the spirits, the discarnates. Let us go back to the Spirit's book, question 465. Let's see whether this sheds a little bit more light on this particular subject. 465, which is chapter number 9, the intervention of spirits in the corporeal world. Again, I really recommend for you to read the whole chapter because it's a lot more conclusive than what we're sharing here. 465. For what purpose do imperfect spirits induce us to wrongdoing? To make you suffer as they themselves do. And I'm aware of the fact that we had gone over this question before, but I think it is important to hear it again. I don't think it hurts. Does it actually lessen their suffering? No. But they do so anyway out of envy at seeing beings happier than they are. What kinds of suffering do they wish to inflict on us? Those that result from belonging to a lower order and from being far from God. Let us look at question 466. Why does God then permit spirits to incite us to wrongdoing? Imperfect spirits are meant as instruments for testing the faith and constancy of individuals in the practice of the good. So often they're being sent to us, or they come to us to test us. So if we can be aware of it and be on the guard and recognize when they're coming through us, giving us thoughts, we are on our track. Then we're strong enough. We've built soul muscles to stay on the straight and narrow of doing the good. Question 467. Can people avoid the influence of spirits who incite them to wrongdoing? Here we go again, Rod. Yes, because they only attach themselves to those who solicit them with their desires or attract them with their thoughts. So wherever our energy field is, where our thoughts dwell, depending on the quality, the moral development of our soul, which again has an impact on our perispirit, that is how we either attract or repel certain level of spirits. And let us say the bad spirits right now, because that's what we're talking about. But the same is true for the good spirits. The more we are doing the good, the better our moral, the more advanced the moral quality of our soul becomes, the easier it is for us to get the backwind, the support from good spirits. Question 468. Do spirits whose influence is repelled by an individual's will finally give up on their attempts? Let's see. What else could they do? When they have nothing to do, they leave. Nevertheless, they attentively watch for a favorable moment, as the cat attentively watches the mouse. That's a nice picture to remember. So we always need to be on our toes, don't we? Hello, Bernadette. Welcome. Question 469. By what means can we neutralize the influence of bad spirits? By doing good and placing all your trust in God. You repel their influence and you destroy the power they desire to have over you. Guard yourselves against listening to the suggestions of spirits who excite wrongful thoughts in your mind, those who incite discord and arouse in you all the base passions. So here we got some guideposts. So if we get thoughts in our mind that cause discord, that arouse our bad passions, anger, that the base passions that arouse base passion, above all, distrust spirits who flatter your pride, selfishness and pride, for they are attacking you at your weakest point. That is why Jesus teaches you to say in the Lord's Prayer, Lord, do not let us fall into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So that is what we need to watch out for. They might be testing us, just as simple as that, but we can catch it. And again, I said it earlier, I really like the golden rule. If I can run my thoughts and actions through that, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you, I usually find myself on the path to the good. Question 471. Let's jump into that. When we experience a sensation of anguish, of indefinable anxiety or inner satisfaction without a known cause, does it result solely from our physical disposition at the time? So the question is, if we feel anxiety or if we feel anguish, is that always rooted in our bodies? The answer is, it is almost always the effect of communications you have with spirits, without even suspecting it, or those you have had with them during sleep. And that is another source. How often do we wake up in the morning feeling out of sorts? How often do we wake up in the morning and feeling anguish and fear and don't even know what this relates to? We most definitely know then that this comes from spirit communication we've had during our sleep. And not only during our sleep, it can happen anytime during the day. For example, it can happen when we go into meetings. If we go into the mall, we might come out feeling out of sorts, all of a sudden, fearful, unhappy, distrustful. Most likely, this is spirits that put an influence on us in one form or another. Question number 473. Can a spirit temporarily take over the corporeal envelope of a living person? In other words, can it enter an animate body and replace the spirit incarnated in it? This is about possession. The answer: a spirit does not enter a body as you enter a house. Instead, it associates with an incarnate spirit who has its same defects and qualities, so that they can both act conjointly. Nevertheless, it is always the incarnate spirit who acts upon the matter, enveloping it in according to its own wishes. So this is our free will. A spirit cannot replace the one who is incarnate, because the spirit is connected to the body until the time set for the end of its material existence. So what are we learning here? We're learning that in the case of a possession, a bad spirit cannot attach itself to a body. It doesn't enter the body like we enter a house. Instead, the attachment happens through association. Wherever we spend most of our days on mentally or with our words or actions, that is due to the law of attraction, the spirits we attract to ourselves. And if that's moving around in the lower zones mentally or otherwise during our lives, that's the spirits we attract then. And yet, we cannot blame our actions on those spirits, because we are the ones who are in control of our bodies ultimately. We are the ones who have free will. Spirits cannot take over in that sense. Yeah, the perispirit handshake. Yes, Teresa, I really like that. Thank you for adding that. Exactly. So, there's another question, 484. Almost overlooked it, which I thought was interesting. It is also part of chapter 9 in the Spirits book, the intervention of spirits in the corporeal world, and the subchapter is the affection of spirits for certain persons. So the influence of spirits for certain persons. Do spirits affectionately prefer certain persons? 484, yes. Good spirits sympathize with moral individuals or those who are susceptible to improving themselves. Low order spirits with wicked individuals or those who may become such. Hence, their affection is the result of a similarity of sentiment. So here we have it again. We cannot go wrong by understanding how to become better people, understanding Jesus, feeling the gospel, the Beatitudes, really aligning our will with God's will. We cannot go wrong doing the good. There is no question about it. Question 487. What kind of afflictions cause spirits to be concerned about us most? Physically caused afflictions or morally caused ones? It is your selfishness and hard-heartedness. I say that again. It is our selfishness and hard-heartedness. Everything else derives from these. So there it is. Selfishness and pride. We read that in the gospel already. It's the antidote to charity. Selfishness and pride. So let us work on that. Shall we? So, lastly, are there guardian angels? There are protective spirits that are like our guardian angels. They accompany us throughout life. They are with us from the moment we reincarnate, to help us, to give us advice, to comfort us in our afflictions, and to always show us the right path. So here we see we do have spirit support that is with us pretty much consistently. There's some exceptions, but let us look and understand it a little bit better. The Spirits book, question 489. Always like to go to Genesis in the Spirit book because it is so clear. It helps us to just go a little bit deeper with the subjects that a Spiritism 101 offers. So question 489, again in chapter 9, the intervention of spirits in the corporeal world, guardian angels, protector, familiar, or sympathetic spirits. Are there spirits who link themselves to particular individuals in order to protect them? Yes. Spirit friends, what you call good spirits or guardian spirits. So here we see from birth on, we do have spirits that are with us, protecting us, trying to help us, but of course it is up to us to connect and hear their advice, and then actually not only hear it, but follow it. So there are spirits, they link themselves to us and protect us, and they're called spirit friends. There are three kinds of protecting spirits, and that is important. There's a distinction here. The first one is the protective spirit, guardian angel or good genius that has as its mission to protect us and to help our progress. So the first is the protective spirit or guardian angel or mentor, some people call it. And when we go to the Spirits book in the same chapter we just started, question number 419, we learn what is a guardian angel, a protective spirit of a higher order. Question number 491, what is the mission of protective spirits? Their mission is that of parents towards their children, to guide their words along the path of the good, to help them with their counsels, to console them in their afflictions, and to sustain their courage in the trials of earthly life. Isn't that a beautifully consoling piece of information? We all have them, and we have the power to draw upon their counsel, their wise counsel. We can learn to communicate with them, ask them for support, ask them for advice and help and protection. Question 492. Are protective spirits connected to particular individuals from birth? From birth to death, the answer is. They are attached to us from birth to death. They frequently accompany them after death, even into the spirit world, and even through numerous corporeal existences, because these existences are no more than very short phases in the life of a spirit. So here we're learning they're not just with us necessarily in this lifetime, they actually follow us from lifetime to lifetime and even in the spirit world. Question 493, is the mission of a protective spirit voluntary or obligatory? The spirit is obliged to watch over you because it has accepted this task. However, it is allowed to choose individuals who are attuned to it. For some, it is a pleasure. For others, a mission or a duty. So it depends on the moral development situation of the spirit, whether the spirit who is our guardian angel or our mentor, whether they do it out of pleasure or see it more as a duty. In linking itself to an individual, does the spirit refrain from protecting other individuals? No, but it does so less exclusively. So for those spirits, we are number one. Question number 495. Do protector spirits sometimes abandon their ward when the latter is heedless of their warnings? So in other words, do protector spirits, do our mentors leave us behind if we don't listen? They withdraw when they see that their counsels are useless. and that the ward's will is set on submitting to the influence of little evolved spirits. So if we listen to little evolved spirits, they do withdraw. They do not abandon them entirely, however, and will always make themselves heard. Their wards, which are us, are the ones who shut their ears. Their protectors return as soon as they are called. So all we need to do is reach out. That is a huge gift. And I hope you're all really realizing that those protector spirits are at our disposal. We can learn to draw on their wiser counsel. That to me is really, really good information. It helps me. It gives me relief. I have to admit, it gives me relief. Question. There's a beautiful section, by the way, as part of question 495, if you want to read it. It's by St. Louis and St. Augustine. I warmly recommend to read it. It is 2 pages long and way too long for us to go into it now. But if you like to understand it more, it will be a wonderful read. So question 499. Are protector spirits with their wards all the time? Wards is us. Aren't there circumstances where they may lose sight of them without abandoning them? There are circumstances in which the presence of the protector spirit next to its ward is not necessary. So again, they can withdraw. They don't have to be next to us all the time. But remember, earlier we learned we can always call them back to us. And that lies in our power. Question 500. Does a time come in which a spirit no longer needs its guardian angel? Yes, when it reaches the level at which it can guide itself, just as the time comes in which the student no longer needs the master. But this does not happen on the earth. So we have to remember we are children of God. We're still very immature in our soul development. So for us to have this loving parent, quote unquote, our guardian angel or mentor by our side, who we can draw on anytime, 24/7, if we only like to, and then listen to their counsel. What a gift. What a gift. Question 506. As you notice, I'm jumping over a lot of questions, but all of those of you who have the Spirits book, you can read up on the rest, and I recommend that. Question 506. When we return to the spirit life, will we recognize our protector spirit? Yes, because you frequently knew it before your incarnation. So we said the first category is the protector spirits, and we just learned about them. The second category is the so-called familiar spirits. They're spirits of our loved ones. There's grandparents, parents, children, siblings, and friends. So those are the so-called familiar spirits, almost like family. Not necessarily always blood family, but definitely familiar spirits. And when we go to the Spirits book, question 488, we learn the following. Do our relatives and friends who have preceded us into the other life have more sympathy for us than spirits who are strangers? Of course. And as spirits, they frequently protect you according to their abilities. So, not only do we have our guardian angels, but we also have the help of our familiar spirits that we can draw upon and listen to. The third category is the sympathetic spirits. So the first was the protective spirits, the second the familiar spirits, and the third one is the sympathetic spirits. They are spirits who approach us because of similar tastes and sympathies. A painter, for example, will attract spirits of painters who will inspire them in their work. Question 519 in the Spirits book will shed a little more light on it. 519, question 519 in the Spirits book. It's all part, by the way, of the same, it's all part of the same chapter, the intervention of spirits in the corporeal world. Do groups of individuals, such as societies, cities, and nations, have their own special protective spirits? Yes, because such groups are collective individualities that are headed towards a common objective and therefore have the need of higher direction. So that is interesting information. It is not just for individuals, it's actually for groups as well. Cities, countries, organizations, workplaces, spiritist groups, they all have their protective spirits. 520. Are the protective spirits of groups of a more advanced nature than those who are linked to individuals? Everything is relative to the degree of advancement, whether of groups or of individuals. So it depends on our moral development, also our intellectual development, our soul development. So what we can say, sort of in summary is the following. When we say that the reason for our misfortunes is bad luck, in reality, we are the ones to blame for not listening to the warnings of the good spirits. And I want to add, we are the ones to blame to listen to ill-advised spirits, to lower order spirits. So it is up to us to make that distinction. And as we learned earlier, it depends on our education about how can we best turn ourselves towards the good. How can we become better people? And practicing it practically every minute of the day. It is our best protection. That is how we garner the best support. It helps us to distinguish between lower order spirits and the higher order spirits. And lastly, we have familiar spirits and our guardian angels, our mentors around us all the time to draw on and get help and support and counsel. Let us see, there is some more remarks. Sylvia Beltran, sometimes the bad influence spirits just blindsided us. Yes, I believe that one has to be on guard all the time, 24/7, even when our bodies are resting. Exactly, Sylvia, because as we said earlier, a lot of communication happens during our sleep, and how we wake up often tells us where we spent the night as souls, and what company we surrounded ourselves with. And what better way of falling asleep is with a prayer or the review that St. Augustine, the day's review that St. Augustine recommends to us to know ourselves better, to go back over our days before we fall asleep and see where we need to make amends, where we can improve ourselves and where we've done well. And with a prayer and intention, asking to go to a spiritual hospital or to schools in the spirit world, or to be with the intention to be of service during our sleep. All of this will help us to surround ourselves with good and higher level spirits so that we wake up in the morning refreshed and renewed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, as they say. Sempre Jesus. Yes, always Jesus. Thank you, friends, for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Kardec Radio, for giving us the opportunity to get together and learn about all the different beautiful subjects of how we can become morally advanced individuals. Lots of blessings to you, and next week, same time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Kardec Radio. And next week we will be talking about dreams. Many blessings. Bye.